don't know what you don't know. This is a prep job by a subcontractor, a Tyler subcontractor who did all of this prep except for the plumbing part. They hired a plumber for this, but this is all the sub work, which is another reason that I don't. If somebody's subbing out your tile work, you got to make sure they're on point, because eventually the person who subbed is responsible, but you're still stuck. And that's the problem they ran into here. There's a lot of things going on here. I'm trying to be succinct as possible. I don't like my videos running over 15 or 20 minutes, but it's very difficult to get all of this through to a novice, to people who don't know all this stuff. This is a tile that I would never pick for walls. I don't like hexagon tile even on a floor. It's problematic, but it's even more problematic on a wall unless the wall is flush and even, which it wasn't apparently. This is an older house. And so what they should have done is shimmed out some of those areas, but there's a lot of other problems that they run into. Obviously, you can see where the lines, you know, you got a 1/4 inch or better here, maybe 1/2 inch. And then other areas like over here, you barely have any lines at all. Where did I see that? This is probably a 1/16 of an inch, not even a 1/16, like a 32nd. So this is very, very problematic. This tile is not really meant for such a large area. Some other problems they run into is matching up the hexagon. So they tried here, they tried over here, but it's not quite a full hexagon, but at least they tried and it more or less matches. And then on here, they just gave up. And so nothing matches on the hexagon. Plus there's a huge gap going on here where it's butted up almost all the way to the top over here. There's a lot of problems with hexagon, and I would have talked this this person out of using this on a wall on such a large area. It's just really, really badly done. There is some lipage here, which is incidental, but it's inevitable with this type of tile on a surface that's not exactly flat. There are issues with the plumbing. Even though the plumber was on point to get his mud guards exactly where they need to be, thinking about the thickness of the tile and thinking about the thinset and the thickness of the thinset, because that matters. But then the tile guy needs to know what his parameter is, and that's the reason you have these plastic mud guards back here. So right now this is a whole tile thickness, which is about 3/8 of an inch away from where the mud guard is, and the outside parameter of a mud guard is your finished wall, which the tile guy should know, and it's not there. So the only way that can be rectified is to cut out the straps from behind the wall and push the whole thing out. But also the cuts were kind of half-assed done also. So these two tile need to come out completely and cut better so that everything fits properly. Same with this. This is just barely there. But anyway, but this is a mixer and this is a diverter, because there's two shower heads, one up there and one up there. And then this is a separate mixer for a separate slider. But they did the same thing here. Not only did they shove in all this thinset on top of here, although they kept the holes open, which is okay, but this mud guard is setting back a whole tile width at least. So the question is, will the screws that hold the scutcheon on ever even reach the other end? And that's the problem you run into. This is the outside perimeter of your finished wall, not over here. And then, of course, the lipage that I was talking about, which is incidental in the scheme of things. It's just a horribly done job. These tiles don't match up at all. So these cuts, like this cut should have been up to the wall, and then these cuts should have been up to the tile, and neither one of them or either one of them. It's just a horrible job. The Schluter trim that they picked to put in here doesn't go all the way down to the wall. It's slopped in here with thinset that's already dried on the edge, so that all has to be dug out. I didn't get a level to put on here, but my best guess is, even though it has a slope coming down, my best guess is that it starts higher up there and goes lower down here, which is kind of irrelevant in the scheme of things because everything else is so messed up. Huge gap going on here at the edge of the curb. I don't know what they're doing. So they use hardy backer on here, but they use green board on the outside. Like, why would you do that? This should be a cement curb. Cement meaning cement board on the top and cement board on the outside and cement board here, period. Then they let the cement board go all the way down, which I'm sure they embedded the cement board into the pan before they poured it, which I know they probably did, which is a mistake. And they did red guard it, but it's only one coat, obviously, because I can see the nail heads on top of here, so they haven't really done much with the red guard if you still have penetration going on. I set my wall board slightly above there, same as they did with their tile. They set that slightly above, but they still did their wall tile before they did the floor tile. And that's not going to work. That's not high enough by the time you get your tile in there, in your thin set. I don't know why they slopped the thin set onto the dried backer board with the red guard, but they made it very, very runny, and there's a lot of screw ups on that. Look at that, that's just horrible. And then over here it just drooped down and dried, and I don't even know why they would have done that. That just is illogical to me altogether. Then in addition to that, there's so much going on here. I'm trying to hyphenate this video and it's getting increasingly hard. So the edge of this tile, let me show. If they had just used some common sense, knowing full well that the tile has to be flush there. I don't do that. I actually have my tile about where it's at. But, you know, the customer, the homeowner wanted the tile to be flush, and it's not going to be flush, and it isn't flush. They don't have enough girth. So they poured their mortar bed to right at the bottom edge of this drain, which is a mistake. If they're trying to get it flush, that's not going to work. I don't set mine flush. I set mine slightly above the way it is now. Not quite as that high, because you're going to have thin set, and then each individual tile gets a little taper cut going around. But what they didn't do is they red guarded the surface. Kind of looks half-assed because I don't see any red guard over there, and they didn't go all the way up to the edge of the drain, which they should have. And then they should have run a bit of silicone, white silicone, so you can see where it's at, and just kind of pushed it in there on the edge of the drain so that you know 100% you don't have water penetration going in at that juncture. Then they screed it out, this thin set, all over here in a very hodgepodge fashion. There's no rhyme or reason. In fact, there's not even a reason to do this. I don't know why they screed it out, thin set on this floor. It makes no sense. This is kind of a slurry that you would do if you were, say, doing on a concrete slab and you wanted to do a pre-slope, and then you mix thin set kind of runny, and then you would put your mortar bed on top of that, so it becomes kind of a monolithic type of application. But there's no reason on top of red guard to do any type of slurry, none whatsoever. Only two reasons I can think of: either they were concerned about ripping the red guard as they were working in here and they wanted to protect it, or they didn't feel like tile sticks directly to red guard, which it does. And so but then they slopped it out. They didn't even screed it out nice and easy. So this won't work. You can't trowel out thin set on this type of, look, you can even see the impression. You can even see the impression of it looks like a very small foot. It's just, you know, a bad job altogether. Some of this can be rectified. I don't propose, you know, and I didn't suggest tearing all this stuff out. I think in the long run, and it depends on, you know, the neighborhood and all that stuff, a high-end neighborhood, you can never get away with this. You might be able to get away with, once it's, you know, grouted and caulked in the corners and all that stuff, you know, hide some of that stuff. But, you know, that shelf is coming out. I know that for a fact. There's going to be, they can't put in the Schluter that they bought because this is so cockeyed. And anyway, so I suggested putting a bull nose. You can fashion a bull nose from the larger field tile, and then doing the same thing, taking off that top shelf and putting a bull nose on there to make that work. I don't know what I don't know. I know that if they did all this stuff wrong, they probably did underneath wrong too, even if the plumbing was done right, and I know it was because there's a plumber here. But the shower pan liner is your Achilles heel. So therefore, this needs to have a lot more attention. Even though there's red guard on there already, we don't know how it was put on. And so I'm suggesting that they screed out this whole floor nice and flat and everything so they can get the tile on there properly. You know, get a drop going down properly, drop all the way around, do the caulking around there, and then do some red guard again on top of that so that you're 100% sure water's not going to get into your pan so you don't have a leak later on. And then go ahead and throw your tile on there. So in the end, yes, it can barely be saved, but this, way before they ever got to this point, is where they should have stopped, because you know, this is just wrong in so many ways. And you know, like even to the point of, why are you putting green board on the outside of here when you're using, you know, normal hardy backer on the top and all. There's a lot of things you can extrapolate if you're having a job done, and you know, what I'm suggesting is if these things you start seeing going on in your own shower, you know, stop it before it ever gets to this point, because taking out all of this tile and wasting all this material and everything is really counterproductive. It wastes time, it wastes money, it's aggravating, it's annoying, it's all those adjectives I can think of, to have to start over again. And that's why I'm here, to kind of advise and make sure that it's, you know, that at least going forward that you've rescued it somewhat. It's a shame. I hate seeing this conundrum. Anytime I do a video like this, it's not to show off my knowledge, it's to give you knowledge on things to look for if you're having something done, or if you're doing it yourself for that matter. Don't do this stuff that I'm enumerating. Apparently, before they did the master shower, they did 2 other applications in here. One of them was a hall bathtub tile, and then it was this one, which is another bedroom in here. Not too bad on the floor. Nothing going on, you know, really kind of screams out to me. Even the little tiny cuts that weren't filled in doesn't really matter because they grouted it. And there's going to be a baseboard up here eventually, you know, blah, blah, blah. But there are some things that would have been a head up to me had I hired them, because they did this first. The curb is really low. It's like 1.5 inches. And then it kind of drops down over here to about 2.25 inches, which is kind of weird. It's higher there and lower there, which makes sense because you need that slope, which is fine, but it's still 2.25 inches and 1 3/4 inches down here, which is kind of weird. And then the curb itself looks like it's compressed in, as opposed to over here where it's kind of normal size. And then of course there's lipage, and I hate when with ceramic tile that they split the difference, because eventually the rail of the glass is going to be in here. If they do a frame glass type of setup, the rail is going to sit on top of here, and all this grout was going to get permeated with water. It doesn't matter if you do caulking, water will eventually get into that caulking and soak in here forever, and it gets pretty nasty. So I hate seeing these setups, but the setup wasn't even done correctly anyway. This really would have beget a solid piece of marble going across there, and it's not even sloped. Like you can see that it's level. Slight slope because I can tell this tile was cut, but the tile itself isn't sloped. So I don't know, it's just kind of a hodgepodge of, this is an indicator right off the bat. If they can't work with just a normal ceramic tile, then I wouldn't have trusted them on the other side. There's some lipage going on here, but again, I mentioned that it's kind of incidental. Overall, it's not a bad job. These guys have done a backsplash before. They've done, you know, probably floors before where everything's kind of flat, maybe not level but flat. But shower is a whole different ball of wax, and so there are some issues going on with this. God, look at that. This piece of tile is flat, even though this is sloped, but none of these really line up with each other. And that's not just a critique of the tile, that's a critique of when the niche has to do what it has to do with water falling off, it's going to be problematic. And then look at this huge grout line in the back. This is probably 3/4 inch back here. And then it just tapers down to really almost nothing as you get down left to right. And these tile aren't matched up. Grout's popping out already, which means they mixed the grout too runny to begin with. Usually you see little bubbling in the grout or it's popping out or whatever. I'm not trying to critique the tile. I'm trying to say, in essence, if this is, and not if, this was the first job they did, all these little things would be a heads up not to let them do the master bath. Although they got the parameter of the mud guard right on point with this, and then they messed up on the other side. So I don't know. The other bathroom, the hall bathroom, isn't quite as good either. There's a lot of lipage on the tile. It's the same type of tile. So I don't know. I think they started in the hall bath and realized their mistakes, rectified some of those mistakes here, and then just totally screwed up on the other one. So I don't know. It's a mystery. But if you're going to get a tile guy who's going to do multiple jobs, let him do the easiest one first, and then figure it out, find out if he's doing the right thing or not. If he's not doing the right thing, don't let him continue on to the master bathroom if this isn't done correctly, because that's going to tell you all you need to know. There's a lot of tile guys out there that are great at doing backsplashes and floors, but they've never built a shower, and you can really screw it up. We don't know if the prep was done correctly. I mean, even if all these issues that I just talked about weren't an issue, the fact that they didn't do the prep over there correctly begets, did they do this correctly? You know, at least test this out before you let them go on to the next one. You know, run some water through it, find out if it leaks. I don't know. Hey, if you enjoyed that video and you learned something, consider being a Patreon member. $5, $10, $15 a month would help me greatly produce more videos. I make nothing from YouTube at all. If you're gonna call me for advice, please donate $50 for 30 minutes. My link to my PayPal and my Patreon account is down below. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you get immediate notifications as soon as I post videos. And thank you very much for your support.